Alright, welcome back to my draft feature. As you can see, there are plenty of cards lying on the table. Because I can't really tell which one was the second booster, which pick was from the second booster, which one from the third. I only know it in case of some cards, and I will give you a quick rundown again. Gargoyle was my first pick in the second booster, and he's like one of those guys that says pick me, and no matter what you had before, go into the Death Knight for me only, right? With 4/5/5 and ferocity, he can trade almost everything on the field that will be on the field by turn 4 and turn 5, and he sticks around to see another turn with his 5. He's just beefy and good and amazing, and no matter what you had before, you should always pick him, because he's always a 2-for-1, almost all of the times a 2-for-1, right? And I didn't have any class cards anyway, only the Blast Trap from the first booster and 2-track Dragon Keen. So I think this is there's no discussion about that. He's certainly the best pick in this booster. Alright, moving on. I got past a weapon which isn't too unlikely in this draft format, because Paladin sucks balls. He's so unplayable, it's unbelievable in this draft format. Warrior isn't that good. It's okay-ish, but it's certainly not one of the better classes. So the only class out of those 3 that can play this card is Death Knight. It's the only relevant class, and obviously the guy sitting to my left wasn't interested in Death Knight, which is a good thing. So I got past that card. Third drop, another shout out to my man Tim Rivera. Timrith the Enforcer, the sole reason why Horde is playable again, or at least like up to par with the Alliance. And if you're drafting with 2 boosters of Elements and 1 booster of Worldbreaker, it is actually possible, if you get a little bit lucky, that Horde is better than Alliance, and that's Timrith's. It's only Timrith, seriously, in my opinion. It's just Timrith. He's so good. He hits the field and he has an effect on the field right away, which is always good, like Gargoyle. But in his case, it's even stronger. You just tap him and destroy all opposing damaged allies. That means no matter if those guys are untargetable, if your opponent has like 5 guys that all traded with your guys and all took a little bit damage in return, it will be all for nothing if you just play Timrith. You can read a funny feature match with Matt Markov asking his opponent Ben Isker, so is there any removal that can like destroy all my field in this set, which was at the Dark Moon Fair with the new cards, the pre-DMF, I think it was Chicago, and Ben Isker is like, I'm going to show you, putting down Timrith, and Matt was able to scoop at that point. Anyway, moving on with my draft, my 4th pick was Crone of Chelonian Freedom. Now this card is a little tricky in my opinion, but again we have another card that is playable by those played classes, and those aren't very playable, save the Death Knight. And it says, when it hits play, it gets +1 defense counters, where the number of counters is the cost of a non-alliance, non-horde ally you control. So let's say we have Gargoyle on turn 4, trade something on the field like a 2-drop, and he sticks with 2 or 3 damage on him, and the next turn we're going to play the Crone. It will enter play with 4+1 defense counters, which means you can prevent 5 damage on your hero, like with every other armor, but additionally you can also prevent damage that would be dealt to non-horde and non-alliance allies you control, which means Gargoyle gets to see not only 1 more turn, but 10 more turns in best case. It's just ridiculous if you get this combo going, and I picked this card and thought, okay, let's go crazy and let's try to get some beefy Dragon Keen, so we can always get the effect, maximize the effect and win the game that way. So we got a spoiler at this point, which is Gargoyle, and we got a weapon, which is also great, and pretty much another spoiler with Timrith, and now I'm going for a combo. If you have a deck that can't be decked, which is possible because I picked the Torch of Retribution, plus 2 spoilers, plus a good combo, a good synergy in your deck, you will always go 2-1 at least, maybe even 3-0. So this was the way to go in my opinion. Now we need card draw. Forged of Shadow and Flame says if you control an equipment, pay 3 to draw a card. It's a little cheap. Those guys in R&D, they couldn't come up with new good quests, so they just decided to reprint all the good old quests and make them more expensive. Because this is doing the same thing than Bane of the Illidari, just for one more resource. But well, anyway, it doesn't suck balls if you got Emerald Tree Warden again, because now you get to draw 2 cards for 3 resources, which sounds more than amazing. Then I got extremely lucky with Blightbringers in the booster, showing me that either no one understood how powerful this card is, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't know how powerful it was, but I listened to the ramblings of Jack Fire over and over and over again, pointing out that this card is so ridiculous that you absolutely need to play it, and everybody wins his sealed tournament just because of this one card. And I found out he's right in a way. It won me a game by turn 3. I will explain it a little later when I'm giving you a rundown of the deck. Anyway, Blightbringers, extremely strong, pick it if possible. Then I'm not exactly sure how all those cards came together, which one was the first I picked and so on, but I'm very certain about those few cards, which were my first picks in that booster. Then we went on with Azure Magus, just a low drop with 1/1, and its ability to grant somebody ferocity, which is good with Blightbringers, because you can play him, play a like 3-drop, 4-drop or something, play Blightbringers afterwards, give the 3-drop or 4-drop ferocity and just trade his field, and your guy will get to see another turn, because they only have like 1 or 2 attack at the most. And we got Death Strike, showing us that nobody wanted to play Death Knight, and not sticking with the class early on was the right decision in this draft. And then the last few cards, I picked End of the Supply line certainly in the first booster, because I wasn't sure how many guys with Arcane I had at that point, and I was like, okay, maybe I can draft enough Dragon Keen. Then another Protector, 4/6, which is great, so I can pull off all the shenanigans in the late game, and I have to see the late game first, so I got another beefy Protector, and a 5-drop 5/5/4, which is good because it can be stashed. Again, nice synergy with the Emerald Tree Warden. I'm not gonna show it again and rub it in Timbergara's face that I like this card a lot. Alright, this was the first booster from War of the Elements. The second booster, at this point I had, like I said, strong field, good 4-drops, right? Timriff and Gargoyle. After the first booster I already had the good 3-drops, so now it was time for some early game. My first pick, I'm pretty certain of that, it was a first pick, is the 2-drop Protector. Now some people say, well, you should have like picked the 2-drop earlier, but if you don't see a 2-drop earlier, chances are all the other guys on the table picked them very highly, so now they should have enough 2-drops and you will get to see 1 or 2. So as you can see, my draft technique most of the time is like floating all the time and seeing what comes around, and hoping that it goes around again. So anyway, this was my first pick in the last booster. Then another quest, right? If you control an equipment, which is very easy for us because we got the crone, we got the weapon, we had another armor in the first booster, so you can almost always use that at some point. And then I got past another crone, so all I need at this point is like Dragon Keen, Dragon Keen, Dragon Keen. Some of them beefy, so I can add a lot of counters when this guy, when this armor enters play, and some of them cheap, so I got some early game going on. Right, then we got another Protector, Corlix Grimvic, 2/3, like I said, very good because it can trade with the 1-drops with 1/1 and stick around for another turn. Then we got Bound Inferno, still not sold on the card, but I think it's okay. It has a direct effect on the field. It enters play for 5 resources and has ferocity, so you can trade something with only 3 health. And then you get to see a fire elemental token, which doesn't sound too bad. Like if you add it up, you got a 5/3 ferocity guy, although the fire elemental doesn't have ferocity. But I think it's fair, and I think opponents tend to ignore it because it only has 3/2, which might make sure that it sees another turn, and then we could use the crone and get 5 counters on it, which would make it ridiculous, and we could protect anything we got on the table forever. Alright, putting the pieces together, just another quest. It doesn't draw a card, which sucks balls, but anyway, it gives us a 2/1 token, which is fair. A beefy Dragonkin, 5/3/6. This guy will almost always see another turn, which means that the crone will get a lot of counters. I can keep repeating myself all day, as you can tell. Another 2-drop. At this point we got enough early game, in my opinion. We got a 2-drop in the first booster, we got 2 protectors in the third booster already, and this guy, so we got 4 2-drops, we got 4 3-drops. You have to remember that during the draft, and you have to certainly check between boosters, what am I missing, what is my deck missing. I was missing 2-drops, now I had 2-drops, and I could focus on something else. Well, if I drafted in that particular order, I kinda screwed up, but I think there was nothing else playable in that booster. So a Sewer Drake, another Death Strike. I had that table because I saw in the booster early on that nobody wanted to play Death Knight anyway, so why not have a table. Then this was the last pick in one booster. I think this is okay and playable because it can be stashed, which means I can use it as a resource, and again trigger my Emerald Tree Warden and draw a free card. So the last 2 cards that I picked was another Azure Emissary, although it's not that good, 3/3/3, and the effect will never kick in because I don't have any mages or warlocks, or almost none. But it's still a 3/3/3, and you can use it with the crone. Right, the rest is another Dragonkin, beefy a little bit. This is equipment removal, which found its way in the side deck twice. I picked those in 2 different boosters, and these are some of the other cards that still came around and didn't make it in my deck. Not all of those cards that you just saw made it in my deck. We will take a look at that in a second. Sinivoon and 3 Masoon, which is kind of funny because I think it's playable, but apparently no one, or at least the Warlock player on the table, didn't consider it playable. I picked up 3 of them, but you will never go Warlock if you got the Gargoyle. Alright, those were the second and the third booster. I think I can be more than happy with how that draft turned out. Let's take a look at the final deck.